Shalom. Kol Holo Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai Bahashem Raha Hakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the globe. My name is Barad Debal, coming to you from the GMS campus, Indianapolis. And to all those listening and learning, to you, I say Shalom. Especially to you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians that make up the 12 tribes of Israel. As you can see in the front, just the title of this is just a CROCS question. But it says, heads up, if you or your kids wear Crocs. And I'm going to click the video. Got very few scriptures, very short video. Have a few thoughts, and we'll end from there. But we're finding, again, anything in which trying to be healthy, whether it be eating, the clothes in which you wear, the Lord actually has, the dietary laws, how you should dress, how we should think, how we should live. For the scriptures talk about how, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, to you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, that he is our life. And of course, as we grow in this wisdom, this knowledge, he starts to show you that everything that's outside of the Most High, Yahweh, and his son, Yahweh Shai, is defiled. The scripture talk about there is a way that seemeth right to a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. And so, of course, it's something as small as, Crocs did a video some maybe a month or so back where mainly high, most women, but so-called black Negro woman tribe of Judah, wearing weaves and hair pieces. Of course, that was pushed heavily within the so-called black community. But then, of course, you got other women of the other tribes and the other nations that are wearing these pieces too, finding that they are carcinogenic in many chemicals that are in these products, that when we place them upon our body and we get to sweat and our pores open up, of course, these chemicals then can lead into our bodies, which deals with other ailments and things that we have to deal with, and we're not realizing that it's because of our behaviors and the things in which we have eaten, knowingly, unknowingly, the things that we've placed upon our body, like our clothes, knowingly and unknowingly. And so today, it's just talking about, I've come across a video, and I did a little bit of reading behind it, and I did pull up something that I found that there may be some truth to this. So let's check it out.
If you are a Croc wearing family, you're going to want to hear this sad news.
Stop wearing Crocs and other foam footwear. Here's why. They are a crock pot of chemicals. It's so unfortunate and misleading. They market EVA foam shoes like this as safe and non-toxic, and it couldn't be further from the truth. This is still plastic. It has additives, plasticizers, and dyes, which are toxic and endocrine disrupting, especially for children, and that's why moms, you need to share this with all your friends. Studies have shown that foam footwear has even tested positive for heavy metals like lead and cadmium. And here's the worst part. You're putting one of the most absorbable areas of your body right on these toxins. What this means when you wear Crocs is that you're inviting these toxins directly into your body and into your bloodstream, especially when you're barefoot.
And this hit home for me because personally, I go to the gym, and again, trying to eat well, you take your herbs and then you work out, and you're trying to work on your spirituality as far as, with your closeness with Yahweh and Yahweh Shai through reading your scriptures, trying to have an overall holistic balance, in Yahweh and Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. And so I say it hit home for me because, of course, we put certain shoes on our feet, we go for runs or we lift and things like that. But then I, in particular, will go into the steam for a few moments, several moments. And my shoes of choice while in there, I don't like to go in there barefoot, but I like to put on Crocs. And what I found is I would wear a particular slide, and when I would go in there, I found that over time that the slides themselves would build up a smell, because of, the moisture. And then when I went into Crocs, realizing that, Crocs were made to be in water and things of that nature, they dry quick. And one particular thing you don't receive is the smell. But I never thought, and didn't think in my mind that they would have, because it was made of a certain plastic or material, that they could have this other underlying issue. And this is how, the spirit of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai works. When we're working, the scripture talks about draw nigh unto Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, and he'll draw nigh unto you. So I would just say, through the spirit of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, I come across this video because, working on your health, overall health, okay, this has come to mind personally to show that, okay, I've been wearing these Crocs, so I may have to take another route, to lay off of them, not wearing them as much, okay. And when I actually go, because I don't wear them through my daily, I just actually wear them once I go into the steam. But you have people who actually, of course, family included, those you see, they go to school in them all day. They come home, they're in them all day, whether they have socks on, but they're sweating in them. And then they have these gibbets, which also I'm going to pull some things up about, the little plastic pieces that they spoke of. So again, I'm going to pull up a few scriptures, and again, we'll end it there. This is the first scripture. Actually, let's do some reading. Okay, it says, I asked, are toxins in the Crocs? And it says the toxicity of Crocs shoes is debated, is a debated topic. So the fact that we even have to go into the debate on whether or not things are that we're putting on our body to be toxic is even one thing in itself. Because we want to live in a world where the things in which you eat, you can unconsciously know, especially if they're supposed to be clean things according to the laws of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, that you can eat those with the conscience, with your conscience being clean. But now you have foods without seeds, genetically modified, sprayed pesticides, fish that have high levels of mercury. And so we eat these things, and then we have to have a certain form of moderation, which we should be anyway. But when you're drinking alcohol, there's the way that they're going through we don't know how the chicken is all being produced, and the actual chemicals and things in which are not in our control. But then we go to the grocery store and we buy these things, and then they have certain things that are adverse to our body, and then we have certain reactions, whether you may be tired, may get sick, may gain extra weight, have sugar insulin issues as far as with your sugars. It's just a number of things. So it's not just about the Crocs, but it says here some sources suggest that Crocs, like other plastics or foam footwear, may contain chemicals that could pose a health risk, especially with prolonged and barefoot wear. And of course, I myself have been wearing these barefoot. Of course, when you go into like the steam, or may hop in a pool or something like that, or in a hot tub and certain things like that. But mainly my place of choice would be the steam room. So, getting in the pool and things like that, I have a whole nother thought pattern of that. But let's go further. I don't want to get too deep or too far into that. I want to make this a short video. It says, how popular are Crocs? Crocs have experienced a significant resurgence in popularity in recent years, particularly among younger generations. So that's why you see how, in that video, she was like, a lot of younger folks. And as you see, within the last few years or so, it was influx, even within my own household, of children and everyone wearing these Crocs, becoming a fashion thing to have Crocs and then have gibbets and things on them, right? Says despite their often controversial design, the company has seen a surge in sales, even hitting record revenue into 2024, with sales exceeding 4 billion. This popularity is fueled by factors like the rise of casual fashion, the ability to customize Crocs with gibbets, charms, and collaborations with celebrities and designers. So those gibbets, they were saying, I came across some things, and again, you could do your own research or do your own, link ups, but they were saying that the gibbets in itself actually carried some indoctrination chemicals, that could actually deal with affecting. Let's actually look it up real quick. Endocrine disruption is caused by chemicals, either natural or man-made, that can mimic, block, and interfere with the body's hormones. So these things, they're saying that they had these within these gibbets, and even within the particular shoe, that they have these agents that could affect your hormones. All right. And so, of course, now you see, when people having certain type of issues mentally, physically, ailments and things of that nature. Again, this could be, along with other factors, how we eat and things like that. That could be a inhibitor, to our growth, or maintaining ourselves. Let's look. This is, let's see. What I want to pull. This is the book of Mark, chapter 16, verse 18. And I just bring this out because in general, everything that happens to the people on the earth, good and bad, this comes from Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. But as for the elect, he will, the Lord, his mercy and his care is unto his elect. And so we have gone through our lives eating, at some point we were in the Gentile state of mind where we ate abominable things, where we wore any type of fashion, wore our hair, the customs of the heathen, where we've pretty much thought and act in general like the heathens. But in the process, the Lord, Yahweh Shemi Shai, when he winked at our ignorance, he brought us to a point now out of that darkness and into a marvelous light. And as we continue to build within this thing, like our Apostle Tahar would say, you should always be growing, in this thing, whether, in knowledge, but also if you having the knowledge, we should be applying it as well. And that, in the way we're learning, through the spirit of Yahweh Shemi Shai, it should also be reflective of how we are moving. And so this says, Mark chapter 16, verse 18, they shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. So just wanting to show that, that it's only by the spirit of Yahweh Shemi Shai that we've made it this far. When you consider that in the so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indian communities, how, drugs was pushed within the communities. You have fast food and different types of food like pork, shellfish, catfish was pushed heavily within the community, as like many delicacies within the community, and many of our people have eaten these things, and as a result, we have continued on. The Lord had, again, he's winked at the ignorance, especially of the elect. Now, many of our people have gone on into those things, and they have been shown that it's not been good for them. But again, in due time, when you despise the words of the Heavenly Father and you don't make those proper changes as these things are revealed to you, then of course it says, he that despised the word of Yahweh by Shem Shai will be destroyed. So this is why you see that many of our people will know to do right and do not, and that's evil in itself. But here we go. Let's finish this out with these few scriptures. This is the book of Isaiah chapter 24, verse 5. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they cut corners. Esau, Edom, so-called white man, started with the Amalek, the chief, of the nation of Edom. Of course, these bankers, those who own, the sports, many of the sports, the gambling facilities and the sports and the movie, the media, things like that. Everything in which they push, for money. They push carnal means. And of course, as you look at the facilities, when you see that there's E. coli, which was something that came out, E. coli within the beef, and I think even the tomatoes. When you start to see things like that, facilities that were actually being shut down or being closed or having to be stopped because they're contaminating, other parts of the food. They're having recalls. These are all under the inhabitants, again, of Esau, Edom, so-called white man. And it says the earth is also defiled under the inhabitants thereof. And when and it says, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinances, and broke the everlasting covenant. And one of the laws, after 7 years, after 6 years, on the 7th year, when it comes to the land, and you should allow for the land to rest on the 7th year, But of course, there's always trees being chopped down. The land is always being cultivated constantly, not giving it a chance to replenish itself. And so that's another reason why the food in which we're eating, the nutrients within the food, aren't giving us the vitality in which it once was, let's say 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and even going back even further. This is actually, they went right into my next one. This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 4, verse 13. It says, and the Lord said, even thus shall the children of Israel eat their defiled bread among the Gentiles, whether I have driven them. And I told you that we were scattered, amongst the heathen. We were brought here. Many of our people were brought here on slave ships. And as a result, the food in which we were given were things in which were against our Father, Yahweh, and the Son, Yahweh Shai, when they were giving chitlins, which is pig intestines. We were getting pig feet. You got hog maws. Then you have catfish. And then in recent years, they made shrimp and crab legs, a delicacy. People are doing these seafood boils with all these abominable foods, the shells and clams. And they popularized a lot of these things to be something when these are a defilement to our body, to our body, which affects our spirituality. But anyway, and then of course, physically, a lot of these things become a breeding ground for parasites and things of that nature. But anyway, let's go further. It says, Esdras chapter 14, verse 15. Actually, yep, and we'll end it here. It says, and set aside the thoughts. Let me go back one verse. It says, verse 14, it says, let go from the mortal thoughts, cast away the burdens of man, put off now the weak nature. Okay, so of course, these things, we can't be too heavy against ourselves, because again, we know that the Lord has allowed he who will let until he be moved out of the way, according to Thessalonians. The Lord has allowed for Esau Edom to rule, so he can show us what it looks like to be in wickedness, to be amongst wickedness, what it actually feels like. And so, of course, he's allowing him to do this thing. So then when he comes and puts an end to it all, he's, the Lord's going to be completely justified. But so we do what we can. Okay. So we put away the mortal thoughts. We're not, like I said, we could do as much as we can as far as teaching our children, teaching our wives, or bringing this information, wives, to your husbands, or to your family in general. All you can do is just present the information and try to do better. But again, long as we're in this system, we know that we're not gonna completely get out of it and be completely unscathed, without Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So we don't want to bug out, so to speak. We don't want to go crazy, over righteous in a sense of, but we just do what we can. Okay. We check labels, if you can, and just keep in mind to also pray, over our food, pray in our daily when we put things on, things of that nature. Salakia, one moment. Next verse says, and set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee, and haste thee to flee from these times. So again, there's many other things that that we say they're bigger fish to fry. There are other things that we have that are going on in life, but we pretty much cast our burdens, like it tells us in Peter, cast your burdens on Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, for he cares for us. All right. He knows what we are in need of. He knows that we need our daily bread, physical and spiritual bread. As long as we seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, all these things in which we need, he'll make sure, especially of his elect, that we have them, and that we'll fare well in the end. Okay, like tells David, he said, I was young and now I'm old, and he says that he had never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. It also tells us that his servants shall drink and eat. And those who are outside Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, they're going to fare. It's going to be worse. They're going to have evil times. But those of his servants, he's going to take care of. He says, and flee in those times. So spiritually, we are doing what we can to the best of our ability to part from this place spiritually. Okay. Says, for yet greater evils than those which thou hast seen happening shall be done hereafter. So of course, this is just one evil thing, small to some. Some people may not even wear Crocs, but to others, this is it's a very big thing. Every time we look up, turn on our TV, and just different things, there's something new that the Lord is exposing, that these devils have put their hands on, and of course they have been defiled. Because the scriptures talk about, if you are a man of the Lord, a woman of the Lord, or or say woman of the Lord, but if you are of the elect, like he has told many men, especially to you men, who he has called, he talks about, like, Solomon, Joseph. I know definitely he told Joshua, of be of good courage, and that everything in which you put your hands on to do shall prosper. But this is because we're putting off the ways of this world, and we're seeking Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai and putting his way first. He says that thou hast seen, he says, it shall be done hereafter. So there's far worse things that are to come, to burden ourselves with certain basic things, but it still have to be taught. It says, "For look how much the world shall be weaker through age." And of course, as the time moved on, the people's stature is smaller, the mentality of people, the way they think is a lot more lewdness. When you flip through the TV, we flip through social media, people are just telling, you got guys that are, will have questions with men or different women, and they open up about um, their their sexual desires or their escapades and things like that. They tell you the type of person that they are. It says, so just in general, the earth is far weaker. And then, of course, you add the air quality, the water quality, the clothes, the quality of clothes, and the food in which we eat. That all comes apart with it. It says, so much the more shall evils increase upon them which dwell therein. So a lot more evils are soon to come. It says, for the time is fled far away, and the leasing is at hand. So that was pretty much it there. So I hope that this lesson was edifying, uplifting, exhorting of some sort to the elect body of true believers of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai. Before I end, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai Ba'Shem Rahahakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the globe. Until next time, all those listening and learning to you, I say shalom.